Welcome to another Confessions podcast from your friends at Radio 2. Yes, a whole bunch of other bad stories from the very sinful Radio 2 listener. Here it all comes then. We have a concise collection featuring a calamitous curry conflict, a terrific taxidermy tale, pushy parent payback, and a secret sweet and sour scam. Dear Father Simon and the Broad-Minded Collective. Well, we'll see about that. Having recently heard the tale of the unexpected consequences of an unwanted bowl of chocolate breakfast cereal discarded from a flat window, I
wasn't here for that one. That sounds a cracker.
Did you have a voice over that for a show?
I can't remember what I was doing.
Public appearance, was it?
For the taxman, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Well, basically, it was a bowl of chocolate cereal, was chucked out of a student window and landed on a priest.
Oh, no.
Which is always good for...
Yeah, always good for a laugh.
Oh, exactly.
I'll say it for you. Yeah.
I feel the need, says Moz, to confess the details of the Battle of Fort Northwood that occurred nearly 30 years ago. I'd spent 3 years studying for a degree at a polytechnic in the North Midlands. This particular institution, in common with many of its ilk, had little money to spend on lavish student accommodation, and this one had taken a lease on an 11-storey block of former council flats in the city that had been recently condemned. In the opinion of the college administration, this made it perfect for first-year students. Hey, first-year students, hope Freshers' Week is going well, by the way.
They don't care, though, do they? They don't even notice their surroundings.
Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Is that what happens?
Yes.
Even if you're in a condemned block of flats.
Sadly, I think you're right.
The 40-plus flats of Northwood Court each had a balcony, affording expansive views of a decaying post-industrial wasteland.
Lovely.
Says Moz, I was one of a large number of students who arrived as a result of the panicky search for any place on any course, commonly known as clearing, usually in order that we could leave home as soon as possible. As the college filled this block from the bottom up, I found myself on the top floor. As one might expect, most of the population of this block were an unpromising mix of steady thinkers and ne'er-do-wells that mostly failed to make it past the hurdle of end-of-year exams and quietly faded into obscurity. However, in the snow of February 1986, that whole population of misfits pulled together as one in a glorious hurrah that became known as the Battle of Fort Northwood. The local population viewed us with well-justified contempt and suspicion, and one student standing on their first-floor balcony having a smoke was just too great a temptation for a passing group of local youths on a cold, snowy evening, and thus the first snowball was thrown and hit home. This was responded to by a volley gathered from the modest amount of snow that had settled on the balcony. This brief volley was enough to exhaust this meagre supply of snow, and the member of that flat dashed next door to continue the exchange. The besieging forces had almost limitless supplies of snow, of course, and soon their numbers had swelled to several dozen. Defenders on the first and second floors were at great risk of being hit, and so they slowly retreated floor by floor up the building. It's like a movie. The snow...
You're painting a fantastic picture.
Thank you. The snow on the balconies was finally exhausted. The defenders were beyond the reach of the attackers, and this is where it should have ended. But fate dealt one last card to the defenders. This came in the form of a large stock pot full of vegetable curry.
What?
One of my flatmates, Paul, had cooked up some weeks before, but had never got round to eating.
It's like Lord of the Rings. You know, they start
but with curry.
boiling tar from the top.
I see what you're saying, yes. It was clearly well beyond human consumption. Originally, it was chock full of saucy goodness, carrots, lentils, a potato or two, but that was a while back. Now, it looked like green slime. Paul and I took a run up and hurled the contents of the pot over the edge of the balcony towards a large knot of our tormentors. The beautiful, spectacular descent spread the gallon or so of curry into a fine, reeking mist that settled upon the youths, who then fled shrieking away from the walls of Fort Northwood, pursued by the cheers of the brave defenders, knowing that the delicate seasoning of saffron, masala paste, goji berries, and oregano leaves was being put to good if unexpected use. The chances of all that being in a curry in 1986 in a student flat, I would suggest, is zero. Had anyone ever heard of goji berries in 1986?
And oregano?
I don't think so. The whole place stank of vegetable madras, as did, I learnt later, a local councillor who was leafleting the area. Oops. All there was to show of the battle the next morning on the way to lectures was a large area of yellow snow with only a few white patches to show where people had stood. Quite good for snow clearance, by the way, for future reference. I need forgiveness from all the local youths who should not have started... Actually, I don't want forgiveness from all the local youths who should not have started throwing snowballs in the first place, but I do ask forgiveness from their mothers, who almost certainly were asked to wash a multitude of items of clothing, and they learnt that turmeric never really comes out. Oh, and that mystery ingredient, which they might have struggled with, which Paul always added to his curries, that was beetroot. We're ever so sorry. I have to say this is quite an extraordinary vegetable curry for 1986, because in my experience, it was just like a carrot and some curry sauce.
If you were lucky.
Well, exactly.
You were lucky.
There's a whole sketch there.
Yes.
But here we are, we're in the industrial wasteland of the North Midlands in a poly. We're on the 11th floor, and here's a gallon of vegetable madras, full of saucy goodness, apparently. But anyway, it ended up over local youths. What do you say, Sister
Well,
Rebecca?
my first reaction was that to suddenly bring curry into a snowball fight was not fair, because it was a snowball fight, and that's the whole point. I mean, you don't start throwing different objects at each other during a snowball fight. So
If you come across, come across a vat of curry...
Well, that was my first reaction, but then I remembered that the local youths had started it.
Yeah,
so
and you had limited snow, didn't you?
Well,
Limited snow.
That's also true, but then it's all about the mothers, and actually, if I was one of their mothers, I wouldn't forgive these students. I mean, students are annoying at the best of times, but to hear that a student
That I
had
can tell.
thrown a
Why
pot
are
of
students
curry...
annoying?
Oh, for various reasons.
You were a student once, weren't
Of course I was. Of course I was.
Were you annoying?
That's why I feel... Yes, I was deeply annoying. Anyway, I think, if I was one of their mothers, I wouldn't forgive. So
Because of the turmeric.
because of the stains from the curry, and to have curry thrown at your little loved one by a student from the 10th
They were
floor.
ruffians. Anyway, let's see what the Dean makes of it.
I would generally forgive, I think, because you added colour to that area.
Thanks. I tried.
Much needed colour to that whole area anyway that you were living in. But I'm sorry for the local councillor, you see. He got all caught up in that, didn't he? You should have checked really to see whether anyone was there. But generally, you're forgiven. Good, it was a good fight. I'd have joined in there.
So I added colour to the decaying post-industrial
Yeah, I
wasteland.
think so, yeah.
It was
Too American.
It was a bit drab. It was
I'll
a
tell you what we'll do. Let's brighten it up with a bit of curry.
dull place to live. Let's spray vegetable curry in a nice,
fantastic.
neat cloud.
Let's not.
Now, Matt always likes a student.
Yes, love students. Can't get
Here
enough
we
of
go.
them.
Here we go.
I'm no expert on military tactics, but it strikes me that if you're going to get into a fight, at least make sure you've got enough supplies. And if you're going to be in a snowball fight, then I don't think it's okay to then say, "Oh, we've run out of snow. Let's just use anything that comes down. Let's just use my vat of curry." Well,
fun
no,
anymore.
you should be using snow. And if you've and also you've got the advantage of being higher up than them. So I am a coward's way out, and plus students. So on both accounts guilty. So not forgiven.
Strict rules of snowballs, Mr. Bond.
What?
Strict rules of snowballs. He's saying that you can't change some snowballs, you see.
What? Strict rules of what?
Strict,
Snowball?
you
What's it got
don't
to do
know.
with
You
Mr.
don't know
Bond?
from the
No,
film.
it's got to do
This is the point. I don't know what he's
From
talking
the
about.
film.
Making another debut appearance, our newscaster of the day. It's Dahlia Raphael. Hello, Dahlia.
Hello, thank you.
Deaconess Dahlia.
Deaconess Dahlia, I like it.
Would you be a forgiving person, or are you a harsh, hard-bitten journo?
I tend to be forgiving, yeah, but this is probably the closest I've got to a confessional since reenacting The Sound of Music as a small child, so I'm very excited.
Is there a confessional in The Sound of Music?
Well, Maria goes and she says, I
Oh, I see.
confess this, that, and
Oh,
the
I
other,
see.
doesn't
Yes,
she?
I can see what. I
In a
can see
broad
what.
sense.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. Sorry about that.
That wasn't me.
Sounded very rude.
It sounded like Dahlia was had a few problems.
Excuse me.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed. So here comes today's tale. That's top production, that was. I think we're going to say that this one is from Josiah. Thank you, Josiah. Dear Simon and the assembled panel, after 50 years, I think it's time to confess to this, my most famous sin. He obviously ranks them. Anyway, this is his number one. In the 1960s, my grammar school's old sandstone buildings that had stood for centuries were to be flattened to make way for a new futuristic concrete and glass structure. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you progress. The first part, scheduled for the wrecking ball, was the biology lab. All useful items had been put into a temporary building. I was disappointed to miss out on the 8-foot human skeleton called Persephone, and I missed out on the embalmed sheep's stomach, which I wanted to get hold of. However, a stuffed 4-foot crocodile with a wonky tail was left behind. I asked Sir if I could have it, and amazingly, he agreed. What fun can you have with a stuffed 4-foot crocodile? Well, I should tell you. Cycling home with it under my arm, I was subjected to much shouting and various attempts at comedic comments from passing pedestrians. "This town's got enough crocs already, mate!" That kind of thing. I don't know if the pedestrians in this area were Cockneys, but...
But we've decided that for your accents...
For the
What does
moment.
that mean, anyway?
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't
got
make
enough
any
crocs.
sense.
What does that
Yeah.
mean?
It doesn't make any sense.
Why is that an insult?
Crocs.
No,
maybe?
they were just saying that they've got enough old people.
Oh, old people, is that what it is? Okay.
Is that what a croc...
I didn't realise.
I'd never heard of that. I thought croc was somebody who was injured. If you're crocs,
Yeah,
you're
well,
injured.
croc... Oh,
Crocs. That
think-
doesn't. Yes, that insult didn't make any sense, which we shall say back in time to that person.
I think you're getting hung up slightly on a casual...
No, I don't think we are. I think
Totally.
it's central to the story.
Yeah, old folk, they're crocs, aren't they? Crocs.
Oh.
It's a
Okay.
well-known thing.
No, it's
Okay.
not.
Well, I'm only arguing on behalf of Josiah, who's sending
Okay.
the confession. Some people getting hung up, just because someone moved your microphone. Anyway, you might like to know that I left my crocodile in many hilarious situations. In the sweet shop, in the gentleman's loo, and in the bushes of the local vet. I would only leave him in place for a few seconds, just enough to cause momentary panic. There was even talk of an escaped crocodile from the local zoo. Now, Croc was by now 1 foot shorter as his tail had fallen off. But amazingly, Mum, Dad and Sister Mary weren't aware of my new friend, who incidentally had been stuffed with his mouth wide open, looking quite menacing. He lived quite happily under my bed. Now, my sister, you should know, had a boyfriend called Keith. He was a bit flash, with his zippy, soft-top sports car, all chrome and trousers he was. One day, a day I have to say that was to see my final croc-related prank, Keith zoomed into our cul-de-sac with the top down. He revved the engine a bit just to let us know he was there, tootled his 3-tone horn. Is that what you do? I think that's what you do. Then entered the house to collect my sister. Whilst he was in the kitchen, chatting, preening and stroking his hair, I planted Croc in the boot of his car. Broken end first and mouth facing out. I even put a fag between his teeth. Don't smoke, kids. Actually, don't smoke crocs, but it's more to the point. I then waited in my bedroom to witness Keith's discovery of said crocodile. The event exceeded all expectations. To this day, I have never seen anyone move backwards and upwards with such velocity without the aid of pyrotechnics. It was like something out of a cartoon. 1 minute, he was putting his bag in the boot. The next minute, he was running away down the drive, arms aloft and screaming. I actually think he had a little accident at the same time. Whilst I suspect he saw the curtains twitch, he was in no fit state to investigate the perpetrator of the prank. Having gathered himself together and launched my stuffed friend into the neighbour's garden, he and my sister zoomed off at warp factor 10 in his pathetic sports car. My sister and now brother-in-law, the Reverend Keith, how about that, have spent many happy years together, and it's probably about time that I said sorry and asked forgiveness from Reverend Keith and the panel, plus the family of friend Nigel, who became the proud owner of the croc, the guy who lives next door. He frequently updates me on the latest victims of croc shocks, and it all happened 50 years ago with this top crime from Josiah. This is his number one sin, which kind of means to me, I think, that Josiah's had a pretty good life. So what do we think about this, Sister Brett? Can you forget... Well, it's back to pranksters, but if you get your hands on a 4-foot crocodile, think of the fun you could have with that.
I love a good prank, as you know, and I think putting the crocodile in the vet's garden is brilliant.
Just
'cause,
momentarily.
you know, you would definitely think that was a real crocodile.
and then whip it
But,
away.
But I think Keith can't have been that bright, really, because he ran away having seen this crocodile, even though there's no way there could have been... It was in his car, right?
Yeah, it was in the boot of the car.
in
He
the boot of the car.
lifts the lid and there's a crocodile
if he
having a fag.
If you really thought about it, number one, why would the crocodile be having a fag? Number two, why would there be a crocodile in his boot anyway?
Yeah.
So I don't think he was very bright. So I kind of blame Keith for that, actually. Sorry if you're listening, Keith.
Reverend Keith.
Reverend Keith. So I forgive.
Deaconess. I don't know if deacon actually... I think deacons are just deacons. So anyway, Deacon Dahlia.
Josiah, I would have been more impressed if he'd given the croc a name other than Croc. I think that's a bit poor not to have given him an alternative name.
This town's
But,
got enough crocs already.
Even though that makes no
It
sense.
does make
It
sense.
does not make
Everybody
any
else
sense.
knows that it made sense.
I think it was quite a feat for him to cycle home with a 4-foot croc under his arm to even begin the tale. And having lived in sin for 50 years before admitting it, I think I have to let him off. Although sports car envy is not a good thing, but Keith sounded like he deserved it.
I'm not sure he's been living in sin, but anyway. But I know what you're saying. This is his most famous sin. Here comes Brother Malcolm
Here's the thing.
shuffling up to the microphone.
I know I speak for the nation when I say that we were all against Keith the moment we found out he had a soft top, because nobody likes anyone with a soft top.
Why not?
No, Yeah, no,
That's
absolutely.
ridiculous.
No, it's not
Stop.
ridiculous. It's absolutely
You're
the
just
truth.
jealous 'cause you've never had one.
It's nothing to do with jealousy. It's just people with soft tops. And maybe this was actually a sort of road to Damascus moment for Keith, where he realised maybe I should not have a soft top and maybe I should get into the clergy instead, because I'm wasting my life with this soft top and the possibility of there being reptiles in my boot. So I am going to forgive for that. Pretty durable crocodile as well, seeing as it's been there for 50 years and it was thrown into a garden. Normally they sort of disintegrate, but...
So, can he not be a... So, the clergyman has got rid of the soft top because he's become a clergyman? Is that,
yes,
can he not
that's
be a
what
vicar?
what I'm saying is that Keith decided I'm wasting my life with this car that should have a roof, but I've decided because I'm so cool and I need the hair blowing through my wind blowing through my hair, whatever. He's decided because of that he's going to be in the clergy.
Cloth. You can't be of the cloth and have a soft
No, you can't. No, you've shown me one clergyman with a soft top car. None
Vicar in a
exist.
soft top.
You're just asking for trouble, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Wasn't that a Morrissey song, Vicar in a soft top?
Yes.
I think it was. Look who's back. Dahlia Raphael passed the audition yesterday and she's wandered back in. The Deaconess is back. Thank you very much indeed. Well, tonight's tale is a very interesting one. Let's see what you make of this. Dear Father Simon and the collective, my dastardly deed dates back to the 1980s. I've carried this burden with me almost daily since. Perhaps your forgiveness might alleviate my suffering some. The situation began around 1986. My then partner and I had moved into our first house, and we were working all the hours the good Lord sent to pay the bills and get ourselves straight. By the way, this comes from Sandra, in case you're wondering. My older sister had married an industrious chap who financed a very comfortable lifestyle for her and their 2 young children. He'd been a teacher at a well-known and highly revered school here in the UK before their emigration to Canada in 1985 to an equally high-ranking educational establishment. Throughout these times, my former working-class sister would often call and regale us with tales of the upper-class and wealthy folk with whom they were constantly rubbing shoulders and their truly marvellous darling experiences. Everyone they knew was completely top or famous or both. A top actor, top actress, top politician, a famous Formula One driver, that kind of thing. I won't say she actually rubbed our noses in their success in comparison to our poverty, but sometimes she did come pretty close. Due to their elevated... Matt's already made up his mind, by the way,
Yeah,
I'm saying.
yeah. This isn't going well.
Due to their elevated social standing, their children were naturally high achievers. Ballet and pony riding were included in their extracurricular activities. Right. And amongst the plethora of other pastimes and sports was my niece's opera singing lessons. My niece was apparently a wonderful singer. In truth, Father Simon, she is, but we were loath ever to admit it. And she participated in various school concerts and plays, often being singled out to do the solos. Thus, my sister would constantly crow and send us paper cuttings or, get this, tape recordings of their soon-to-be internationally famous kids. Initially, we would read or listen with some interest until the parental pride became a little wearing. My sister would call and ask if we'd received the aforementioned items before proceeding to read out the newspaper cuttings and the reviews that they had.
Word.
Then the tapes had to be listened to, although they generally were of pretty poor quality. They were pretty crackly and hissy. And then they invited our compliments, barely waiting to hear anything that we actually had to say before the next round of, didn't he or she do well, don't you think? Sometimes we'd politely coo appropriately. Other times we'd say, well, to be honest, we were working so darn hard, we simply didn't have a chance to read or listen to them, but I'm sure we will do soon. Well, one sunny day, a cassette tape arrived, my sister's handwriting stating thereon, Dennis Leary, no cure for cancer. Dennis Leary, a famous stand-up and a very famous legendary recording. This raised an eyebrow or two. It wasn't the kind of title of theatrical performance that we were used to. However, I can't say we kept up with the various West End shows at the time, so we just imagined this was something that had passed us by. Nevertheless, curiosity suitably aroused a few weeks later when we decided to listen to the tape in the car on our way to work. Well, for anyone out there who is familiar with this particular recording, you might well imagine our shock and disbelief at the content and language of Dennis Leary's stand-up routine. To say it was non-PC was an understatement. We gawped silently as we sat in traffic, completely speechless. But this gave me an idea. From time to time, my sister would ask me to pass on the recordings that she'd made to my brother-in-law's elderly parents
Oh, excellent.
for them to enjoy. A day or two went by until Big Sis phoned. Did you get the tape? Oh, yes, we got the tape. What did you think of it? Well, actually, we were really, really busy, so we've just sent it on to your in-laws. You haven't? Yes, why? Please tell me you haven't. Why not? I thought they could listen to it first and then send it back to me. Long silence. When did you send it? A couple of days ago. I'm trying not to laugh at this point. Says my sister, I'd better go. Crikey, plus various other words of abject desperation. I better tell my husband. As she rang off, I chuckled to myself and decided I'd confess next time we spoke that I hadn't actually sent it. A few minutes passed and the phone rang again. This time it was my brother-in-law, maniacally quizzing me on exactly when I sent the parcel and whether I still had proof of postage. His parents were apparently on a cruise around the Norwegian fjords, and they were desperate to get to the house and collect the parcel, maybe anticipate it, maybe get there as the postman delivered it. More frantic phone calls from my sister ensued, telling me about the contents of the tape and laughing hysterically in between her sobs of panic and fear of what would happen when her gentle, elderly parents-in-law sat down with their little crustless sandwiches on a Sunday afternoon to listen to Dennis Leary's highly personal take on smoking, drugs and vegetarians. And so, Father, I seek forgiveness, not from my sister and brother-in-law, because the tapes and newspaper cuttings ceased almost immediately. So good came out of it. I don't seek forgiveness from his parents because they knew nothing of the goings-on during their vacation. However, I do seek forgiveness from my brother-in-law's poor sister, who, not having keys to her parents' home, had to get down on all fours each morning on her way to work to force her hand through their spring-loaded letterbox to retrieve and sift through the post in her parents' absence, obviously leaving with empty but bruised and cut hands. She was only reported to the police twice and questioned only once. Thus, I throw myself at your mercy. Well, how about that? So we haven't had... I don't think we've had Dennis Leary mentioned in a confession before. But anyway, you can see and you can understand the annoyance of the high-achieving family corresponding with the less highly achieving family. But let's see what the highly achieving Rebecca Pike makes.
There's nothing worse than a mother who shows off about her offspring. And, I mean, even if it's your sister, there's just nothing worse. And to punish somebody like that by sending them tapes and cuttings every week is just unforgivable, I think. So even though, the sister and her husband suffered a bit because of this joke, I thought it was a great practical joke. I do feel sorry for the brother-in-law's sister because she wasn't really involved and she was the one who had to do all the work. But nevertheless, I am going to forgive you because I think it was great.
It's a nice image of her going to work and going past, just sifting through the post and shoving her hand through the letterbox the deacon called Dahlia. In fact, yesterday renamed by a listener the Dahlia Lama, so we'll allow that.
Oh gosh, parental pride. It's very easy to get the better of you. I have to say, having 3 kids of my own, but it definitely did get the better of Sandra's sister.
Do you send a newsletter saying how great the kids have been all year?
But one of their grannies has been known to send clippings in the post, so so it's not me. But I do applaud Sandra for keeping a straight face, and I'm very sorry for the brother-in-law's sister's bodily injuries. They're quite funny, though, the image of the police coming and checking up, so I have to say, perhaps I forgive.
Forgiven, okay. Look, it's looking quite good, I think, for Sandra, but let's see you shuffling up to the microphone now.
Grandparents boasting about their grandchildren is fine. Parents doing is absolutely unforgivable. Pushy parents. No one cares about your kids and about how... Because all that is you wanting to say how talented I actually am, because they're a part of me. No, not interested in you at all. Dennis Leary's No Cure for Cancer is the gold standard of stand-up, so for that alone, I was always going to forgive. Why couldn't they just tell the grandparents, by the way, don't open that package when you get back from the fields? That would have solved all the problems. But no, they're too caught up in their little land of wanting to know how fabulous their kids are. So I am forgiving for that, for the Dennis Leary alone.
Class war, that's what it is.
Yeah, class war. Well done.
Thank you very much indeed for tonight's tale, which comes from Mary. What? Do you not believe that? You passing notes to each other already? What?
I'm just writing down the name. I always write down the name.
I do too. I don't think she's really called Mary.
She's not?
No.
No, we make up the name.
Do you?
Dear Father Simon and the Merciful Mess, my confession is fairly recent by the measure of other stories, but the guilt has been weighing me down for long enough, so it's time to come clean. This tale dates back to 2004. when I was a 17-year-old and enrolled in a fairly strict boarding school in the Kentish countryside. I was a day girl, but once a year my parents would go on a child-free holiday and I would board for 1 week. This was an incredibly exciting time for me as I realised that I was very young, that an ordinary school day simply didn't have enough hours for the mischief that I was capable of. Plus, my best friend was also a boarder, and fate brought my friend, we'll call her Alice, and I together the same way it did for Bonnie and Clyde. Which is a little bit ominous, bearing in mind
Yeah, how that ended.
what they got up to. Yes, bank robbing confessions. They're not going to get very far, are they? On this fateful day, says Mary, Alice and I conducted 3 hours of market research for our business studies A-level in the local Pizza Hut. You'll notice there's a food flavour as we go through.
Loving it.
Eating ourselves into a stupor and laughing uncontrollably before heading back to our boarding house for the night. We skipped dinner, still recovering from lunch, and lay on our beds with a few other friends, talking late into the evening. At around 11:30, we decided we were hungry again, so spurred on by the excitement of being together and the hijinks the day had already held, we ordered a Chinese takeaway. The first layer of my guilt comes from the fact that we knew very well that this was forbidden, and I wish my story ended there. We went ahead with our order and asked the nice Chinese takeaway man to tell the driver he must park at the entrance of the school. We then gave him directions to the boarding house, all the while emphasising the need for him to be unseen. We told him to stop when he hit a plastic bag hanging out of the window on a rope made from our dressing gown cords, because we were 4 floors up. In here, he would find the money and we would haul up the food.
Outstanding.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
Well done.
Is this in St Trinian's or something like that?
Sure.
It's something like that. It seemed like the perfect crime. Our house mistress and the teachers who lived on site would be none the wiser, and we could squeeze in another few thousand calories to round off the day. Again, I wish this confession ended here. Half an hour later, however, we felt a tug on the bag as the delivery man took the money and left the food. We hoisted the goodies up and we tucked in. It was midnight when the intruder alarm sounded through the entire school. A high-pitched, deafening sound to ensure all girls were woken up quickly enough to blockade their doors with their mattresses. A breakdown in communication had caused the delivery man to drive up to the boarding house, parking outside the house mistress's window with the engine running. This was a very big mistake. Anyway, the alarm was sounding. We quickly disposed of the food, threw open the windows and squirted every perfume, sprayed every hairspray, even lit up cigarettes. Don't smoke, kids. Even lit up cigarettes, figuring that we'd be in less trouble for smoking than for ordering a takeaway. We were trying to cover the discernible smell of fried rice and sweet and sour sauce. Oh, it does sound quite good, doesn't it? You should do that one day.
Nice.
We quickly... yes, we've done that. The story is not over. Then blue flashing lights flooded our windows. We peered outside, praying to see anything other than what we saw, which was 2 police cars outside our school. They were greeted by all those on-site teachers dressed in their pyjamas and wellies, carrying torches and whistles. We watched as they scuttled off in different directions, looking for the intruder. An hour later, their searches had proved fruitless, and they bid the coppers farewell and headed back to their homes. The house mistress went to each dorm to calm down the gals and ensure them that the threat was gone. When she knocked on our door, we expressed deep concern, and the conversation went like this. Are you okay, girls?
Because we are in St Trinian's.
Yes.
Go on, Alistair Sim.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, miss, we all said. But who was it? Well, we believe there was a prowler, but it's all okay now. She sniffed the air. Can I smell cooking? No, miss. She sniffed again. Cooking and cigarettes? No, miss. Then a small voice from the back. This was Chelsea, a well-known sneak. I think the new chef was working late, miss. Oh, that'll be it, said the house mistress. I must have a word. So it
was awful.
Became the queen there.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was gone. We had to cover our tracks because looking back on this incident, I think expulsion would have been the mildest punishment handed out. So, Father Simon, where to begin? I seek forgiveness from Alice, who I knew would not have been in that situation had I not been there. The very accommodating people at the Chinese restaurant who tried their best. The house mistress, roused by a strange car outside her window, the girls and teachers woken up by an unnecessarily terrifying situation, and the policeman who searched the grounds for an imaginary intruder who wasn't there. Oh yes, and the chef who never smoked or worked late. I highly doubt that I will be granted your mercy, but one can always hope. Yours regretfully, that'll be Mary. or whatever her real name is. So I like this very much, very St. Trinian's. I like the idea of getting the sweet and sour in with the dressing gown cords in the white bag passing over the money, almost like a spy novel. What do you think here, Sister Pauline?
That's all very clever and all very fine. No, not forgiven. For the simple reason, their absolute number one first instinct was to cover their own back. So at no point did you think that this poor delivery guy might have been caught on the premises and hauled off into the cells. It was all about protecting themselves. They should have confessed right there on the spot.
Right. And what, and get expelled?
Just saying, not forgiven.
Don't think so. And I don't think you'd have done the same.
I would definitely have done the same with the benefit of mature hindsight.
Here's the novice.
Part-time P, that's really... Because the plan was a good one, that Mary and Alice go on a spree, be it a eating and smoking spree.
Don't smoke, kids.
With cheap perfume, don't smoke, absolutely right. But it was the delivery man who got it wrong. He didn't stick to the script. He broke free.
Have you ever tried to communicate complex directions to a
there
Chinese
you go.
delivery man?
Well, you go there.
It was inevitable.
We don't know who's a Chinese delivery man.
You're
He
correct.
was working for
Any,
the takeaway.
Someone working for a Chinese takeaway
Thank you
is
very
what
much
I meant,
indeed.
obviously.
I'm not an idiot.
Moving on. And by the way, it's not just Pizza Hut. There are other huts on the market that are available. I thought about that one as well. I'm going to cover up
Pizza Hut.
BBC Derriere. So I'm absolutely going to forgive Mary and Alice, and capers continued long into their life and still do so as they go on sprees.
What do you think, Brother Matthew?
This all spiralled out of control very quickly, didn't it? And this all comes from the guy just having his car idling outside someone's house. Frankly, this school needs to get a grip. If we're going to start calling the police because somebody's got a car near where my school is, and I don't like, frankly, you need to be sorting some stuff out there. So I am going to say forgiven, because I can't see what the problem was. It was a guy in a car. What's the problem with that? Well, no need to involve everyone else. And the bit with the dressing gown, absolutely well done for that. So, yes, definitely forgiven.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Pretty good, I think. Let us know if you have a shadowy secret that you have finally, after all these years, be prepared to share with us. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. More in a week. And the Weekly Mayo. Don't forget that. Available now and every Friday. Thank you.